Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and I'm here to take a look at the hotly contested, blood spilling, money taken right out of a blogger's handing, SDCC exclusive Black Series 6-inch First Order Stormtrooper, as he was in his general release in the latter half of 2015. Box aside, it's basically the same toy with some small differences that I'm too casual to catalog, so I felt like a special kind of winner when I bought mine, and then bought a second one a few weeks later. Then bought a third one a few months later. I'm not troop building the First Order so much as twin building, or I guess tri-building some parts of it. I have this under control! I'm a big fan of this slightly sleeker looking evolution on the good old John Stormtrooper design, and the Black Series 6-inch rendition looks pretty sharp. As far as I can tell, the armor sculpt is quite accurate, and all of the white plate pieces have got a gloss finish that comes off quite favorably to my eyes. Unfortunately, the painted white belt bits look a hell of a lot mushier and sloppier, like a waistline reminder that this is still a mass-produced big box toy line. I do like the body proportions a lot, as they come off very natural and very average Joe Stormtrooper, the younger modern cousin of good old John Stormtrooper. The helmet sculpt is well done, looking hardcore from the front and generally at a glance. As you give it the full once-over, bits of paint slop and sculpt mush begin to manifest on the sides of the headgear, but it's not enough to entirely put me off of the figure, especially when you have several of them standing together and telling you to move along, move along. Moving along to the accessories, the First Order Stormtrooper comes with an F-11D blaster rifle and an SE-44C blaster pistol, and the paintwork on these firearms is pretty fantastic, all things considered. I generally don't expect a lot out of tiny toy Star Wars guns, and these deliver some surprisingly unmessy applications to pull off the apparently controversial combination of white, black, and silver. Both guns can solidly tab into the storage hardpoint on the Stormtrooper's right thigh, and sadly he only has one hardpoint, so you can't have both guns stored on him at once. But hey, he can always hold one, and he's pretty good at it. The trigger finger is only really there on the right hand, but dual wielding certainly isn't out of the question if you don't mind him, not fingering the trigger on the left-hand gun. Proper two-handed rifle techniques kind of are difficult, but I'll explain that in more detail shortly. The First Order Stormy is kind of a joy to pose in certain contexts. He's got the same neck connection as Kylo Ren. There's a ball socket joint, and there's nothing really impeding it here, so you can see how it's able to tilt from side to side, look up and down a little bit, turn left and right, and then that ball socket joint stem is on a hinge, which the easiest way to demonstrate it is to just kind of break this guy's neck. But you see now the whole stem has tilted down on the hinge. This is mostly for looking down, like way down. Looking up, the back of his helmet still kind of bumps into stuff, and I don't think there's any range for the hinge to move back. It's only really made to be straight up or pointed forward. His shoulders have got a universal joint, and it plays nice, even with all the armor stuff up there. It goes out to a pleasant, tree stance, and it can, of course, go forward and backwards. There is this single hinge elbow again, with the bicep swivel built in. The wrists on this guy bend inwards and can turn left and right. We'll talk about the elbows in a second. Let's go through the rest of this. His torso joint is gorgeous. This thing sold me on this toy. Day one, minute one. Look at this. Ball socket joint connection. This is amazing. Like, this is emotive. You can just have him sass out and be all like, "Excuse me?" I really like it. His hips have got a ball socket connection with a cut thigh swivel that takes the armor with it, which I think is a really pleasant effect. Double hinged knees, which look amazing when they're bent, and it really bums me out that they're only down here on the knees. And then his feet do not have any kind of bootcut swivel, but they do get a hinge to go forward and back, and then the stem connecting them to that hinge allows them to tilt a bit. One problem with this guy, kind of a major problem in my opinion, is that his feet, if you look at them, they bend upwards a little bit here on the sculpt, and I've messed with a lot of these. They all have this problem where the toes are kind of curled up. And the bottom here, like, it's a small foot, and with that small foot and the toe curling up, like, he'll stand, but he is absolutely ready to tip forward. That's not forward. Anyway, when I'm playing with these guys, often I think I have them in a solid stance, I walk away, I come back, and they've fallen forward. I've seen them teeter forward on those curled up toes. It's annoying. What's also annoying are these elbows. Like, check this out. Here's, if you really masticate with your fingers this plastic to get this elbow joint to bend underneath this piece of, like, overhanging sculpt, which aesthetically looks cool, but practically is kind of irritating. That's how much you can bend his elbow, like less than 90 degrees. practical downside of this is if you want him to hold his gun, like his rifle, the thing Stormtroopers tend to carry, you want him to hold it with 2 hands. It's doable, as long as he's holding it extremely low, like down here. And I want to get both fingers on the trigger and on the thing that's not the trigger on the front of the gun. There we go. He can hold his gun like down here, real relaxed, and that works. But then if he wants to actually aim at somebody, like he's holding the gun in a kind of dumb-looking pose, like out here in front of his chest, and it looks almost okay, but just not okay enough to look very stilted. And it's a bummer that the elbow joints on these guys are not super great. Now, I tried modding one because I have too many. So this is what the elbow looks like normally. And I'll go grab a modified trooper. And here's one where I just sliced a bunch... Oh, now he fell forward. I just sliced a bunch of material off of the overhang, and it's white plastic underneath. I'm going to go in there with a Sharpie and color that in at some point. I also tried cutting out... There was the hinge usually ends a bit high here, so I tried cutting a bit of it off of there to give the hinge as much range as possible on the forearm. This actually had a positive effect. Like, this guy can now bend his elbows just about 90 degrees, whereas this guy could only bend his elbows about whatever many degrees that is. Like, you can see the difference there. It's very minor. It's like a 5 to 10 degree gain. It's not worth all the work of slicing through all the plastic, in my opinion. It's a fun experiment to do. I'm not going to do it to all of them. I'm just going to do it to this one guy. It's going to be my one flexible Black Series dude. But if I get his hands around his rifle, he can hold it just a bit tighter to his body and thus look sort of like an actual person shooting a gun, to a degree. It's just enough to allow for it to just cross over whatever that action figure Uncanny Valley type thing is, that allows him to look a bit more natural when he's shooting things. So this dude's all like, I can't shoot, oh, I'm dead. This guy's like, pew pew, I'm a Stormtrooper who does business. So, they're fun to pose, like super fun to pose in all kinds of scenarios except for regular Stormtrooper stuff. And, like, you can have a lot of fun. You can do James Brown things, you can do sassy things, you can do drunken stupid things. You just can't have them look like they're in an actual Stormtrooper fight. Good or bad, the First Order Stormtrooper is the troop builder to kick off Phase 3 of Hasbro's Star Wars Black Series, and I'm fairly happy with how he turned out. Thing is, that positive outcome is loaded with caveats. The figure has a great look overall, but some of the sloppier mush is kind of masked by having 2 or 3 of them hanging out together. The posability is incredibly fun, except for actual stoic Stormtrooper postures. The stock elbows are a tragedy, as this figure is begging for a good old-fashioned double-jointed setup. However, I'm so pleased with the articulation when I'm just having my personal First Order squad acting like a bunch of dopes, I simply can't begrudge the figure much farther than a stern finger-wagging admonishment. If you can live with the limitations and have easy access to them at retail price, the Black Series First Order Stormies aren't a bad choice. But bear in mind, at this scale, you've also got SH Figuarts, Bandai's 112 model kit, and Medicom's Mafex all hanging out on the sidelines and crooning promises of greater articulation at you in their swarthy, helmeted voices. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and that list of First Order foot soldier options is also kind of a long-term shopping list. I like this suit design a lot. I like it at this scale. I'm gonna have a weird 2016.